Bring in our panel. First, from Newsmax New York, on the left, Ellis Henican, radio and TV commentator, and on the right, relatively speaking, from Newsmax Washington, Ford O'Connell, Republican strategist. Ford, I'll start with you, since this seems to be an intramural squabble there. Is Common Core going to become an albatross around the neck of former Governor Jeb Bush?
Well, in a Republican presidential primary, Jeb Bush has three marks against him: his last name, immigration reform, and Common Core. And frankly, Common Core is the biggest hurdle for him to overcome. It was a Republican idea that was hijacked by President Obama. Conservatives see it as a government overreach. Frankly, the talking points write themselves. He has a lot of explaining to do, and if he cannot continue to explain how Common Core is part of national security and economic mobility, it could wind up becoming his, it could be the demise of him, to be perfectly honest.
And Ellis, as you view this from the orientation of the left, do you enjoy seeing this competition between a pair of Florida Republicans, at least the rhetorical war, escalate?
No, it's perfectly delightful, isn't it? Love these intramural fights. And this one is particularly interesting because, listen, as Ford mentioned, I mean, this is an idea that it's not some crazy lefty idea. I mean, this is something that bubbled out of, very mainstream conservative politics. But then Obama decided to support it. Then, of course, all these people have to now be against it. So, yeah, here's what's going to happen, right? During the primaries, the candidates, including Jeb, will be pulled further and further and further to right as they suck up to those Tea Party voters. And then they'll get killed with that stuff when it comes to the general election. So, have fun with it, guys.
That particular schematic for a presidential campaign, I would imagine that Ford might take polite and perhaps a passionate issue with. Ford, your take on what Ellis just had to say.
Well, Ellis is absolutely right. These candidates have to start thinking about the general election. It's one thing Jeb Bush said earlier. You have to run as if you're going to win the general election against Hillary Clinton, and you have to understand that there's going to be bumps along the way. The deal here is to be authentic. It's not just about positions. They're concerned about authenticity, and the candidate who best talks about economic mobility to average, ordinary Americans without being painted an extremist is probably going to be the one who winds up winning the Republican presidential primary.
Well, to certainly be authentic, but not to be insulting. It seems to me that, with all due respect, you gents may be missing the point. It is possible to be passionate on certain issues where you may actually be in agreement with the bulk of people in your party, and then highlight other issues where there is a broad consensus, hence no moving leftward or moving rightward, instead a kind of message inclusion. Ellis, what about that theory of presidential politics?
Well, yeah, JD, you can also be passionately wrong. Listen, you understand that dynamic as well as anyone. I mean, right? You've got these core, revved up, Tea Party-leaning voters, and as a candidate, you want to go suck up to them, right? Because they've got a lot of energy, they can help you raise some money, they can propel you through these early caucuses and primaries. But the problem is those voters have a set of views that are way, way right of most Americans' views. So you go cozy up to them, and then for the next 4 or 5 months, people are reading back the quotes you said as you were trying to make friends with that extreme. It's a recipe for failure in November, but hey, have at it. It's a lot of fun.
On the other side, Ellis, you can dismiss the vote totals from a liberal state like Oregon, which moved aggressively to bar illegal aliens from having driver's licenses in a nonpartisan vote, and say that somehow anyone who wants border security or deal with that is somehow hopelessly extremist. It's all in the definitions, but I tell you what, Ford, when we come back, your crack on the next topic. We'll give you first dibs. Time is running short. We'll continue with Ellis Henican and Ford O'Connell, and I get in a few points too. Our panel discussion resumes after this. A good place to bring back in our panel. On the right, Republican strategist Ford O'Connell. Skyping in, or actually joining us from Newsmax Washington. On the left from Newsmax New York, Ellis Henican. Ford, first to you. After a divisive leadership vote in the House, does this amendment really show unanimity now within the House Republican Conference?
Absolutely, so long as they keep the issue on executive overreach. 60% of Americans think that President Obama was wrong to bypass Congress. This is going to go up to the Senate. The Senate's going to take it up, but unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be able to override a presidential veto. But this is what voters wanted. They didn't want pastels. They wanted bold action, particularly on immigration, is the way the president did it. So good for the House. We're going to see what happens.
Ellis, there have been those who ask the question, what happened to a strong defense of American workers? And of course, the union movement historically aligned with the Democratic Party. With this embrace by the president of a unilateral amnesty, are Democrats content kissing off organized labor, or at the very least, American workers?
JD, you know I love you, right?
Well, in a sense of camaraderie, yes.
That is the most misstated question I have been asked all week. First of all, this is not remotely amnesty. This is a decision, an executive decision on priorities of prosecution, essentially. Saying,
okay,
listen,
let me
these
rephrase that then.
folks,
So it's
these relatives,
usurpation.
these
It's usurpation of the
people here in this
Constitution.
country, these law-abiding people in our country, you know what? This should not be priority number one. Let's go get the criminals, not the families, and let's don't waste a lot of federal resources on people. Frankly,
Ellis,
we'd rather
that's all
have
well
them
and good. I'm
stay
gonna ask
because
you
they
one
help our
question.
economy a lot.
74% of Americans think that Obama's executive action is going to lead to more immigration. We have stagnant wages. What are you doing to protect the
immigration
American
numbers are
worker?
down.
Because
Allowing
heroin for more people to jump in. We're seeing this with Cubans, with a wet, dry policy over his last situation. We're seeing this in South America and Mexico.
This is silly.
It's silly?
This is silly.
It's silly? How
It's silly
so?
to protect the American worker.
Listen, do you guys want to yell at me, or would you like me to answer the question?
Ellis, the
Go
floor
ahead,
is
Ellis.
yours. The chair recognizes Ellis Henican for at least 30 seconds. Go ahead.
We know that the immigration numbers are dramatically down. We know that the vast majority of Americans don't believe in throwing out 12 or 13 million people who are here without documents. We know that's true. We know that the president has a legal authority to do it. You know what? If he doesn't, go sue him in court and you'll find out that he doesn't. But these symbolic actions that will have no impact other than to go rev up your extreme do not make America better. They don't help the Republican Party. And they're not going to do any good.
Let's let Ford have something to say. Then I might
Ellis,
have a comment.
you don't
Go
know
ahead,
that
Ford.
the immigration numbers are down. The bottom line is Border Patrol doesn't even know how many people who cross. And not only that, I'm not only concerned about the border, I'm concerned about overstaying visas. And thirdly, you have to protect the American worker. What is the point of being an American citizen if you don't have a certain set of rights and the country is looking after your well-being and your economic mobility? If not, what's the point?
So you think we're going to evict 13 million people? Is that your point?
That's not what I said, Ellis.
I'll tell you what happened.
Get realistic.
If I could weigh in from the chair.
What the president did is going to encourage more illegal immigration, and that's the
wasting
problem.
Your time. You're wasting your
Ellis,
time.
I do appreciate the profound yet polite differences we have expressed today. I would simply leave you both with this thought. Again, Oregon, classified as one of the most liberal states in the country, voted not to extend driver's licenses to illegals. If Oregon does that, this notion that America accepts illegal immigration, I believe, with all due respect to you both, is patently absurd. We'll leave it there today with our thanks to Ellis Henican on the left from Newsmax New York, and on the right, Ford O'Connell from Newsmax Washington. And America's Forum will continue following this.